One of the things I'm going to go through with you very, very quickly is something we've done a little bit of this before, but I wanted to change a few things. And some of you probably haven't seen this before either, is that my philosophy on competition. So my philosophy on competition is your biggest threat in business is not your direct competitors, but the inaction of your prospect. So this is one of the reasons why, I don't know if you've ever noticed in my trainings, I rarely talk about things like competitive analysis. I rarely talk about, go and see what your competitors are doing and copy off them. I don't talk about that stuff because it's not as important as it is to figure out what is the best way I can serve my client, what is the best way I can attract them, how can I improve the service and product I'm giving to my client, how can I create more certainty around the outcome that I provide for my client. These are the questions you need to ask. And so the biggest threat is not the guy down the road who's selling the same product, but whether your client takes any action at all. So out of a research project that was conducted by this guy, they found that this figure is not made up. I mean, it's a pretty neat figure, but it wasn't made up. 80% of buyers actually make it to the end of the sales cycle and make no decision. So they're making no decision. So you have, if you have 100 leads, right? 20 of them are buying. Maybe you get 5 of them. 15 go to your competitors, and then you have 80 people that don't do anything at all. So which pool of people should we fight over? The 80?
20, because they're already 5.
I'd rather go after these guys. I'd love to see how I can influence as many of these guys to take an action. Because that's a pretty big pool of people. And you reckon that these guys, my competitors, are going to even think about that? So I want to think about how all the ways, short-term and long-term, can I influence these people to do business with me. And I have seen it. I've seen a lot of people come to us and say, we've been following everything you've been doing for 3 years or 5 years, and now we're going to make a decision to work with you. We've had people say, we really wanted to work with you, but at the time, we just didn't have enough money. But now we've saved the money, now we can work with you. And all these kinds of conversations. So thinking short term obviously is important, but also thinking long term as well. How do I focus on that 80%? That's where the real gold is, I believe. Fighting over 15 people versus 80 people is silly. It's making sense so far. I'm going to get a little bit more deeper soon.
The 80%, does that include people who say no? As it's a no decision, meaning it's the people who they just never responded to your offer in any way with a yes or a no?
Well, it is. In this survey, they were only counting people who actually went through the sales cycle. So people who went through, in different scenarios, through e-commerce platforms, but also through lead generation and then sales process, that most people just didn't do anything at all. Versus what other people would probably think that, well, if I didn't get the client, then I probably went with someone else. Right? So it'd probably be a lot more of people who didn't even enter the sales cycle. So if your biggest competitor is your prospects in action, do you know why this happens? Why are they not taking action? If you've seen the training, you don't know what to do.
They either don't believe you or they don't believe in themselves.
That's very good. That is true. You can answer the question, Fletcher.
I was going to go with status quo.
Yeah. So there's an interesting... Thanks. There's an interesting cognitive bias that we all have called status quo bias. Who's heard of this? You guys, very good, great. Status quo bias is really, if you want to think about what status quo bias is, that it's our belief that the current life path we're on is a neutral point. It's not taking us back, it's not taking us away from our goals or the future, it's not harming us, it's not costing us any money to continue along the current path. So when it comes to making a decision, we have to say, well, you know, what we've got's not bad. I mean, I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's not costing me anything. But if I go with this guy, or if I change this thing in my life, whether it be a product or a service or a life partner or something else, or a location of where we live or a job, any decision, then there are going to be risk factors. So I'm evaluating the decision based on faulty assumptions. So I'm not aware that what I'm currently doing is actually harming me or costing me money. So it's very important to think about. The status quo is basically, I think that the current path I'm on is not harming me in any way. Oh, I found the thing. Cool. There we go. So if this is the decision, you know, if this is the buying a product or buying the product in your marketplace, then status quo bias is really this barrier between the decision, and it's so much easier not to make any decisions at all. How many, you don't have to tell me what, but how many of us know we have to make changes and decisions in our lives, but we're not doing them? If you haven't put your hand up, you're lying to yourself. So, context is the thing that we need to think about to overcome the hurdle of status quo and get them over here to make the right decision. And this is the context. So we need to figure out how to alter the context in terms of our marketing, in terms of what we're doing outside of marketing, in terms of what we're saying, in terms of, you know, the whole thing. It's not just putting a funnel up. You know, Alex was talking about this yesterday. You know, there's certain, you have to go through the process, but there's a certain point in business where I want to get more leads, I want to get more sales, and that's it. But there's so much more to it, because you've got to think about, how do I move the needle further? This is a really weird thing, attention theory. Things will appear more important than they are while we are thinking about how important they are. So if we're not thinking about something, then we're not thinking it's important. And the media use this a lot. They'll think about the topics they want us to think about, and all of a sudden there's trending topics, there's hashtags, you know, hashtag Harambe, the gorilla, the dentist that shot the lion. Oh my God, hunting's bad. But we didn't think about this yesterday. But at the time, it was like, we're thinking about it, right? And thinking about how important this thing was. But there's so many things in life that especially the media, do to make us focus on things and then make it feel like it's very important. But the good thing is we want to use this to focus our attention of our prospects to the right things. So directing the attention on what we want them to focus on changes context. Going back to the example, I could, you know, if I had a partner who wasn't training and I felt like they should be more active in life, I could nag them, I could tell them they're sloppy, I could tell them they're, you know, tell them all the stats about health and all these things. But if I'm going to change the context, I'm going to change the behavior. It's much more effective. I'm going to change what they're focusing on and what that means to them. So changing the meaning of what it is.
Can I comment on
Yeah.
that? I think it works really well when you combine this with the like the taking stock as well. When you look at like the influential, because for example, the partner, if they have kids as well, you see it on the TV ads all the time, where the dad's running and the dad has to sit down and the kid's running through the park, and then he's like, little tear, and then, you know, and then to get him to join, you know, chess on top or whatever. Yeah. And then because he has to get back up and get healthy to be able to play with the kids. But if the mum was just saying you need to get fit, then nothing would happen.
Get off the couch, you lazy bastard. If you look at any insurance ad in Australia, I don't know what the insurance ads are like here, but in Australia, they've tuned in on this. Like, their ads are so on point because they know that people put off things like life insurance. Anyone heard of the guy Ben Feldman? Ben Feldman? Considered the number one. He has Guinness World Records for the amount of life insurance policies sold by anyone. And when he was in hospital, he was very old and he was very sick. He was in hospital, so they were like, he was the best salesman for the company. Now, this problem because he brought in so much more business than anyone else combined in the company. And so they made this Ben Feldman Sales Award for the person who would make the most sales for that month. And lying extremely sick in bed in hospital, he won the award. But one of the things that he would do when he sat down with the husband and wife at the dinner table, you know, back in the day, he'd drive out there and say to the husband, you know, life insurance is really important because, you know, it's going to take care of you when you walk out of your family's lives. And there was a feeling that he made them feel like they were going to let their family down if they didn't do this. So he's changing the meaning of the whole context. Very powerful. So he's not going to be able to say, no, I don't want this life insurance policy.
So do you mean he took them to the point of imagining what life's going to be like when he's gone, taking to them mentally to them?
He made them feel like that passing away was exactly the same as walking away from the family and letting them down.
I've got a buddy of mine who caters to a Hispanic marketplace about an hour from here, and they are very. He claims that particular demographic is very, very concerned with who their spouse is going to wind up with if they move on.
Wow.
So the conversation is not about life insurance, it's who's going to be taking up your spot in the bed, who's going to take care of your family, who's going to be raising your kids if you're not here, who's going to go, do you know who that guy is? Do you know what his background looks like? Because he's going to be here and you're not going to know the first thing about him, but you can prevent that with life insurance.
By hiring a hitman after?
What's that?
Hiring a hitman? Get rid of the next dude? So my experience is what I agree to attend to. Only those items which I notice shape my mind. Only the things that we notice shape our lives and our minds. So our life is only affected by what we pay attention to. Probably a bit too profound for this Tuesday morning, but I'll leave that one with you.
Tony Robbins, for focus goes, energy flows.
Yeah, that's it. So we have to deliberately, intentionally, purposefully divert attention to the things that we want them to pay attention to. We can't let it happen by chance. You can't just let things just happen by fate or by whatever you believe happens. Because if you have a product or service like your life insurance policy, if somebody doesn't have that, and I've seen a lot of cases where people don't have life insurance and their family is left in absolute turmoil, and it's devastating. And so in that example, you owe it to them to alter the context to get them to make the right decision. And in most cases, everything we do is life-changing. If you're generating leads and sales for somebody, that's life-changing for that business owner, for the staff of the company, for the family of the owner, for the family of the staff. You're creating a lot of security and certainty around that. In most cases, what you provide is a life-changing, life-saving thing. Jeff?
Now let's flip this. As consultants, advisors, and business owners, at certain stages of your business, what do you pay attention to? That can be detrimental to the sustainable growth of your business. Low-hanging fruit. Oh, let's It's easy, let's get this one, let's get that one. Low-hanging fruit, Vern Harnish and the Rockefeller factors, or the Rockefeller or whatever.
Yeah, habits, yeah.
Says that low-hanging fruit is the most detrimental thing to your business long-term, because that low-hanging fruit will never get you to that fractal geometry, the 80-20 that you were talking about earlier, and all you're doing is paying attention to that low-hanging fruit, because it's low, because it's cheap, and it's never going to allow you to grow the way you want to grow. And
Yeah.
So being able to advise people as you're helping them find their target customer, to be able to step over the pennies and the nickels to get the dollars is, because there's going to be a lot more pennies and nickels, but to be able to stay focused on the things. And I think that flipping this in context, I guess,
Yeah.
is important for us, in here, to be able to look at our real world scenario. Is am I focusing on this guy because he's low hanging fruit? You're going to spend just as much time on that guy as you are on somebody that's
Yeah,
paying you 10 times.
exactly.
as much. And Ben, you and I have
Yeah.
talked about those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lines forever.
Yeah, definitely.